Architecture projects don't come much bigger or more challenging than building an entirely new capital city from scratch, but that's what the Egyptian government has set off to do. The Egyptian government has embarked on a mission to change its capital from Cairo and move its administration to somewhere in the middle of the desert. But building this new capital would cost a whopping $58 billion. The new capital, when constructed, will house 6.5 million people. Can the Egyptian government ever complete this project? Or will it end up like many megaprojects in the Gulf states? It is no secret that Cairo, the current capital, has become a traffic-clogged urban sprawl of more than 20 million people and is plagued by air pollution and poverty. This super mega project is partly intended to relieve congestion in Cairo, one of the most densely populated cities in the world. But Egypt would not be the only country that has changed capitals due to overcrowding. In 1991, Nigeria moved its capital from Abuja as a way to relieve overcrowding in Lagos. Also, in 1960, Brazil moved its capital to Brasilia, partly because Rio de Janeiro was overcrowded. The Egyptian government has argued that Cairo is bursting at the seams and the population will grow to 40 million by 2050. Well, it is good news that the new city is being built on 170,000 acres and is nearly twice the size of Cairo. Construction of the megaproject began in 2016, and the 6.5 million first batch residents are scheduled to move there next year. The new capital is the multi-billion-dollar brainchild of General-turned-President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the biggest of the megaprojects he launched since taking office in 2014. Under al-Sisi, the country has undergone several massive aesthetic changes through an infrastructural overhaul. This has helped the country in experiencing bursts of economic revival amid widespread unease regarding political and social issues. Located in the desert east of Cairo, the smart city is expected to set new standards for utilizing modern technology to improve quality of life. It plans to use a design that will allow residents to have 24-hour access to public Wi-Fi and use smart cards to make payments and lock their doors. Even better, the city will have up to 3,000 electric vehicle charging stations to encourage its citizens to use electric cars instead of diesel ones. The city will use a monitoring system that encompasses more than 6,000 cameras to keep track of suspicious activities or theft incidents on the streets and regulate traffic. All roofs will be covered with solar panels, another clear sign that Egypt is seeking to build an ultra-modern city that's also environmentally friendly. The government announced that trial operations in the new administrative capital were to start in the first half of 2021. The move to the new capital was supposed to happen in the second half of 2020, but due to the pandemic, the project was delayed. But no one knows how Egyptians will be impacted by a new capital and the shift of the seat of power outside of the city for the first time since the Muslim conquest in the 7th century. The city, when completed, will house the presidency, cabinet, ministries, and parliament. The planners also promise that it will have a sports complex, an airport, an opera house, a 21-mile-long public park, and 20 skyscrapers, including the potential new Africa's highest skyscraper, standing at 345 meters. In addition, the city would have about 40,000 hotel rooms, a large park that dwarfs Disneyland, and is 6 times larger than London's Hyde Park, covering a 4.2 million square meter retail area. Also, some 6,000 cameras will monitor the streets of the new city. The authorities will use artificial intelligence to optimize water use and waste management, and residents will submit complaints using a mobile app. Tens of thousands of apartments have already been built, although few are furnished or painted, giving the new city the appearance of a vast construction site. At the construction site, diggers and cranes clutter the landscape, and wide roads run between empty plots and part-finished buildings. The project for sure has started, but the Egyptian government has recently hit roadblocks to the continuance of the project. Let's see what kind of problems this project is facing. The president, Mr. el-Sisi, had previously promised that the megaproject would be funded by foreign and local investors, and also through the sales of government land in central Cairo. He had said that the government had not borrowed any money from external sources to finance the project. Well, funding has always been one of the major problems of building the project, and now the $58 billion project is struggling to raise funds and needs to overcome other challenges after investors pulled out. But with investor interest flagging, the president announced that the government would pay the developer, which owns and is overseeing the building of the new capital, about $203 million a year to rent ministries and other official buildings in the new office district. This placed a direct burden on taxpayers. Although the majority of the expense has been assumed by the Ministry of Defense and Military Production, these contributions are not sufficient to cover the $45 billion for the project, so the government has had to resort to foreign investors for funds. Those chosen initially were companies from the Arab Emirates before they began to disassociate themselves from the project. This led the Arabs to be replaced by Chinese banks and companies, which provided $15 billion in the initial phase and later on added $20 billion. However, disagreements between the Asian investors and the Egyptian government have led to some of the investors also withdrawing from the project, leaving Egypt to source funds elsewhere. This is a problem, since the country has an IMF credit of $12 billion to be paid back shortly. Egypt's challenges are many, some of them financial, while others social or political. Critics also see the entire project as evidence of El-Sisi's authoritarianism, launching a multi-billion-dollar plan with little debate. The president often lashes out at those who question him, telling Egyptians that he is only answerable to God and they must listen only to him. He has said oftentimes that Egypt's resources are limited, leading most Egyptians who are struggling amid skyrocketing prices to wonder why so much money is spent on such questionable projects. Also, the Egyptian government has made efforts to deny that the new city will only attract the rich people, saying it is for all Egyptians. Prices tell a different story. The smallest apartment in the new city, covering a distance of 120 square meters, is expected to cost as much as $73,000. The pricing is out of reach for a mid-level bureaucrat who may only make the equivalent of about $4,800 a year. There are also those who pass the judgment that the project is just a propaganda strategy to improve the image of El-Sisi. He was re-elected in 2018 with 97% of the votes, but he only reached the position of power after leading the coup d'etat against Mohamed Morsi, who was the first president of Egypt to be democratically elected. And now, senior executives at Egypt's new administrative capital have resigned amid revelations that the former chairman caused major faults in construction. Critics call the new capital a vanity project, arguing its cost could have been better put into rebuilding the wrecked economy and refurbishing Cairo. This has led to the strongest critics of the construction of the new capital once again expressing their disagreement with the project. The social fabric is now battling several crucial and emerging issues. Some of these are climate change, the national redesign, Egyptian women's fight for freedom and accountability, and traditional markers, the economy, civil society mobilization, demands for political organizing, and demographics. Those that consider the new city to be a waste argue that such a high economic investment should be used to improve other Egyptian cities, especially Cairo, and not wasted on the creation of a massive city from scratch. Even urban planners, who believe that the new capital is indeed required, still advise that the location of the proposed one is not ideal, as it should be to the west of the Nile Valley. And experts who have accused the issue have said that Cairo's woes will only deepen. But despite the setbacks, Egypt's general-turned-president has been keen to show off the project, taking visiting French President Emmanuel Macron on a helicopter tour of the site in January. According to the Egyptian housing minister, Mostafa Madbouli, the project will take between 5 and 7 years to complete. This timeframe sounds a bit unrealistic, and is perhaps a case of wishful thinking, as one could argue is the project as a whole. Well, if it ever gets completed, the city would be a world mover and a new feat in humanity's infrastructural developments. Do you think this project will ever be completed? And if yes, how soon? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.